you haven't written that thing, and next thing you know, 6 months turns to a year, and you're sitting, and then you're telling people, yeah, I would like to write a book someday. You know, I started writing something, I'll get back to it eventually. You never want to kill off your characters that way. You want to kill them off creatively, not because you didn't want to write. Right. So you had another question?
Yeah, just bringing together coherence, like just the starting point. I mean,
the starting point for me is, well, in the bios, you know, for the first book, The Dragon of Prowley. Basically, with that book, I started off with the monk character, just simply being at the monastery, shining brass, you know, cleaning up the church, you know, and just describing the details of his daily chores, his daily life. I even went to the point of talking about his parents, his childhood, you know, and how, you know, his family was, you know, had a very good family, very good upbringing, but he was always sheltered by his parents. As you start talking about your character, all these things just start popping up, and you know, you'll have your bio there, so you know, you add a lot to the bio. Basically, for coherency, if you just start describing your character, boom, your story just starts taking off. You know what I mean? You just get that small starting point. It could be, it's like starting a fire. You know, it's like the smallest match, the little flicker of flame can start a forest fire. It's the same thing with writing your story. You know, so you just start off with the simplest things. You know, I usually don't start off my stories like a lot of people start off their stories like a James Bond movie. You know what I mean? They'll start it off like action, adventure, blah, and then you know you get to the credit scene, and then you get to maybe a slower scene and build up another, you know, the story. And a lot of people will do that. A lot of my stories, I build it up with introducing the hero first, you know, and then once the first chapter is usually all about the hero, and then the second chapter is usually about the antagonist, and then the third chapter is usually a dramatic event that happens that gets the hero involved in this mission to usually defeat evil.
your name is John Davidson?
No. That's the guy's named after. I wish I was John Davidson. I mean, not as old as him. I mean, I wish I had his money. Davidson L. Haworth. Haworth. My last name is Old English. In fact, in this country, hardly anyone has my last name, but if you go to England, it's like Smith. It's like everybody has my last name. It's just a trip.
Spell that one more time, please.
Haworth. Yeah, and I'm all over the internet. I got my hands in everything, from podcasts, Twitter, Facebook. It's all connected, you know. And I've been here for 2 days too. So I have a whole thing. You know, if you go to my website, I have a little bit of a blog. It's not much of a blog because I really hate to blog, to tell you the truth. Because instead of blogging, you should be writing your book or writing your comic book, right? Oh yeah, but if you blog, more people will come to your site. Yeah, but if I'm blogging, I'm not going to get this thing done. Right.
It's such a band of nothing that you're actually doing.
Right.
Do you ever, like, I know I kind of brought this up earlier, but do you ever have a hard time of like getting your audience to get emotionally involved in the character? Because for me, like when I read something or like I'm playing a game, I get emotionally attached to a character and I get emotionally involved with them. And it's like, do you ever have a hard time like when you're trying to create your characters to make sure that your audience is going to put emotional, you know, attachment to this, you know, or do you just like go along with your character?
I go along with my character on what I want to write. I don't write what people want. A lot of the great classic writers, especially the Russian writers, Pushkin, what have you, they never wrote for society. They wrote for themselves. I don't write a story for anybody. I write it for myself and for my own enjoyment. And once it gets out there, if other people like it, then that's just a bonus. If nobody likes it, I really don't give a rat's behind. I'm doing it for me. And that's the secret to writing. If you're writing because you want to make millions of dollars and you want to become the next 50 Shades of Grey, or, you know, what's her, E.L. James, right? Is that her name?
I don't know.
And I just did a small, I just did a small rant about you should never do 2 initials before a last name. You know, whoop, I lost my train of thought. I just thought of her and got angry. So it's just, you know, yeah, I've had people come to me and say, oh man, I really love this character. I like what you did with it, but you shouldn't have killed off this character. And then there are other people who are like, yeah, your characters, they're okay. But characters, it's to the people who are reading it. Some people will really enjoy it, and some people will grow attached to them, and some people won't. For example, for me, it's just on your personality, on how you know, what you perceive. Ender's Game, for example. I can care less about any of the characters until the end. Once it all comes to flourishing, I'm like, wow, okay, I care for the kid. You know, but the surrounding characters is like, I can care less if they all die. You know, and you've seen a movie like that. You're like, yeah, right, I can't grow attached to any of these people. You know? Okay, for example, Godzilla. Mega Godzilla fan. I was no attachment to any of those characters. For me, I wanted Godzilla to completely wipe out every single human being, and then at the end he roars and there's a lot of smoke. And, oh, it's beautiful. That would have been my ideal ending. In fact, when I would see Godzilla, no, look, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. But after that movie, I went home and put on an old Godzilla movie and watched that, so now I'm satisfied. You know what I mean? And it wasn't even one of the really old ones. It was Godzilla, what's the name of it? But it had the American Godzilla in it. It's where they all come back for the anniversary edition. Godzilla fights all the baddies, and it has the American actor who plays the captain who couldn't make it. Is an actor in the States, so he's in Japan. Have you guys seen that movie? Yeah. That was a really good movie. It had like the mutant aliens and all that. And that was a really good Godzilla movie. Why? For me? Because it was a Godzilla movie, but a lot of the people in that movie, I didn't care about the characters, but they were so cool because they were running around like Matrix. You know, it was like a lot of, you know, to me, a great action flick is the Blade movies, okay? There's nothing better than Wesley Snipes getting ready to fight vampires, and all of a sudden, right before he puts up his fist, the techno music starts jamming. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like, that's the ultimate. Every action movie should have techno music in their fight scenes. I'm sorry. It just makes it a better fight scene. So, no, some people, you know, it just depends on the individual. Never write characters, just write them for yourself and for your own satisfaction, for nobody else's. Yeah?
Well, I think some of the attachment has to do with, again, the psychological aspect of each character. Like, you might not necessarily like somebody you don't really know, but it's like, oh, that personality, I don't like that personality.
Right. Well, you know,
So
yeah.
it really just depends on who the reader is.
Right, yeah, and you know, all my evil characters, I hate evil. I watch the news, I see evil every night, I hate it. But that's why you always have to have conflict in a story. I mean, even if it's not a classic story of good versus evil, can you ever name a television show or a movie that has no evil? I mean, has no conflict, right? No, you know, you can't. Party, maybe, you know. I mean, maybe, but besides that, it doesn't matter. If it's Sense and Sensibility, there's a conflict. There's, you know, but that's human life. We live in a conflicted world. Our souls, our minds are conflicted. It's part of the human condition. We're programmed for self-destruction, you know. Sorry for that rant. So, any other questions at all?
Who do you read for fun?
Who do I read for fun? Well, you know, I love Tolkien, but that's limited. So when he came out with the King Arthur book last year, I just delved into that. And he has another book. I think his son discovered it, and that should be coming out soon. It may have already been out. Robert Jordan. It was good. One thing about Robert Jordan, if you've read his stuff, He's got The Wheel of Time. I think it's 15 books now or something. But when I wrote my trilogy, I wrote each book as a standalone. So it's like you read the first one, but you don't have to read the second or third. Or you can read the second, not read the first or third, or the third and whatever. I didn't want to trap the reader. You know, I want to be able to, they can pick and choose, read them all, read one, it didn't matter. Freedom of choice for reading. I didn't want to feel that they, you know, feel obligated. Maybe that's a bad sales point, but Robert Jordan, like the first book is great. The second book, I'm falling asleep after chapter 50. It's just, and I want to get to book 5, but then I have to read 2, 3, and 4, and by that time you never even get to it. So sometimes a Robert Jordan book will take me a lot longer to read than some of his other books, because I really have to be into something, you know, to pick it up constantly. John Steinbeck, I read, you know, some of his older stuff. I read a lot of old works. You know, shoot, I picked up a complete collection of William Shakespeare. You know, just by my bedside. In regards to today, I don't want to sound like an ass, but I really don't read much of the new authors. I just read my own stuff. I talk to other authors, and we come across at conventions. Not a whole lot of my conventions. I'm actually the only author ever to pioneer doing full book tours at conventions. And no one's ever done that. I started doing it 3 years ago. And the reason why is, well, Borders closed down. I have a contract with Barnes & Noble, but they've closed down 500 stores. And talking to them out there, probably within 5 to 6 years, they probably won't even exist anymore. Why? We all shop on Amazon. I mean, come on. It's easy.
Our ebook business might still be around.
Right. So, well, there goes the book signing opportunities. I used to do all my book signings at Barnes & Nobles and Borders. So I kind of had to reinvent the wheel. Well, how am I going to do this? Well, I love comic book conventions. So I'll do comic book conventions, but I won't do 1 or 2. I'll do an entire book tour at conventions. And I've been on my Defenders of Proudly tour, which my PR person is filming me right now. Marina has a couple of copies. You can probably get a couple of copies off of her, and I have my table out here. But I had to reinvent it. So this whole tour of Defenders of Proudly for the entire year has been strictly at conventions. Like, I'm in Long Beach this weekend. Next weekend I'm in Oakland. Weekend after that I'm in Fresno. You know, and then I was doing some tours in Russia, Ukraine, and Eastern Europe, and over there. But I wasn't doing it at bookstores over there. I was doing it, you know, like at universities, because in the university they speak English and they read English over there. They teach English. So as a writer, you can't rely on the bookstores anymore. You know, because they're going out. Who was old enough to remember record stores like Rainbow Records, Tower Records? I mean, yeah, right. Where I'm from in San Jose, I mean, we'd have like 5 record stores within literally a 2-mile radius. I mean, you know, vinyl records back in those days. And now we have 1 record store in the whole city. It's a used record store, Rasputin Records. That's it. So books are becoming in the same way, just like music. I haven't bought a full album of something in maybe 10 years. You know? Right. It's like I pick and choose. I was on iTunes, like this song, I pick 1 song, or I pick 1 song of this album, 1 song of this album. I make greatest hits. I haven't bought a full album in such a long time. And maybe, I mean, I'm not much of a music guy, but yeah.
I myself, I refuse to do that. I'll still buy a whole album.
Oh, will you?
Yeah, I actually sometimes have to import stuff from Europe in order to get
Wow.
something because there's not
Right.
available here.
Well, I know my favorite singer, Adam Ant. I know that's going way back. He still does some vinyl stuff, but I mean, for the most part, I mean, Taylor Swift comes out with Shake It Off. Jay-Z comes out with something, or what was that name of it? Comes out with another song. Well, they'll just pick what they like, what they hear from the radio, from the pop stations, and that's it. They, so I'm sorry, you had a question?
You can answer this first.
I just did.
Have you ever felt like when you first like try to work on your stuff, like before you like published it, have you ever felt like something's like holding you back, and so then you had to distract yourself because
I had to force myself to write.
no, it's like you try to work on your stuff, but something's holding you back, and so you distract yourself with I'm not sure YouTube. Have you felt like that?
Well, I've gotten up in the mornings and thought I don't want to write today. I felt that, I just didn't feel like I wanted to do it, because I have that rule. I have to write something every day. Even if it's just a paragraph, just write something. And there were times I felt like I didn't want to do that, There's one time I had writer's block for my first book, The Dragon of Prowley. I don't know what it was. Nothing would come to my mind, and I ended up going to Wales to visit Cardiff Castle. And when I ended up going to Wales, I realized all the flags had red dragons on them, because that was the symbol of the country, or the whatever UK of Wales. And just that right there, it got me started again, Or just going to Cardiff Castle, because you're writing fantasy and you're writing about castles, and my stories take place during the age of the Crusades. Just the castle alone and just those visuals like that. And for some reason it was about being there, touching the castle wall, smelling the air, getting those details, the scents and the feels in your mind that brought me back to be able to write again. And sometimes that's what it takes, Some people get writer's block that they just put down their whole project completely, and then it never gets completed. And they're off to something else. Or they'll start writing something, they'll get bored with it, and then start writing something else, and they never finish something. You have to stick with it. No matter what, you should always stick with it. So, anything else? Yes, sir.
When you said that each of your books, there were standalone books,
Mm-hmm.
did you have a hard time doing that? Like trying to make sure that each book was standalone?
Basically, when you're doing it as standalone, the only thing you really have to change really is, when it's a series, you feel like if it's a series, you kind of have to, you don't have to describe the characters because you already described them in this first book. So you make it standalone. You do a quick retelling of them in just a little bit, not as much as the first book, just a little bit in the second and third book, and that usually solves the problem. And they'll bring up stuff maybe from the first book, but then you describe it a little bit more, just a tad, and then people understand. Yeah. So you just need a little bit more explanation instead of a character saying, we're such and such cliff here, and we fought the dragon, and remember that, or saying something like that. And then you explain, this was, this happened, and you just do a little bit more explanation, and that usually solves that problem. Yeah. Yeah.
So for your battle scenes, do you do any research, warfare, historical warfare?
I do a lot of historical warfare. In fact, I have a book, has all the formations of Julius Caesar and some of the Greek Roman emperors and generals at the time. And I actually had taken a lot of Caesar's formations in battle against the Germans now, Bavarians, and actually used those formations in some of the war tactics. Because the third book, it's almost like a Hobbit ending. You have instead of 5 armies, I have 7. And it's a major battle, so you have to explain a lot of the formations, and taking a lot from history helped a lot, especially taking them from the time period. You can find a lot of books out there that'll give you formations of King Richard the Lionheart, or Saladin, and you just take those and you just run with them and maybe tweak them up a little bit, to change a few things here and there. So anything else, any other questions at all? Did I help you out? Hopefully, you know, the bios are the most important thing. You know, once you write all the bios, the story pretty much writes itself. You know, and I don't know, has anyone ever tried that? Just doing the bios first and then going forth? Have you tried that? And have you written and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, and just, you know, just,
I've never
Just
had
goes.
it in depth as, you know, French and Matthew and all the other characters that
Right.
I've interacted with too. So yeah, I would get to a point in the story like, okay, why are they doing this? Where in the bio I could have,
Right.
because their parent did.
Right.
Something like that in their parents, so that's how they do. So
Right. Oh, I've read stories where they had an archer and it was just a regular, you know, bow and arrow. And then all of a sudden the character's shooting a crossbow. Well, wait a minute, where did they get the crossbow? Oh, right, it just appeared. So I guess time is coming to an end. All right, well thanks guys, lots of fun. I love that stuff on my table and thank you very much. And I'll be here, I can't say I'll be here all week, just for today. So thanks a lot guys.